Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Deku was mentored by Mirko from day one. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The stench of Dagoba Municipal Beach Park was not something you got used to. It was a physical weight, a humid blanket of rotting algae, rusted iron, and wet cardboard that clung to the back of the throat. It was the smell of apathy, of a society that had decided some things were just too broken to fix. Izuku Midoriya stood knee-deep in the trash, his hands trembling. He was 14 years old, though looking at him, you might have guessed younger. He was small, scrawny, and currently covered in a layer of grime that made him look more like a feral scavenger than a prospective hero. His breath hitched in his chest, rattling with the effort of the last 3 hours. "Young Midoriya!" The voice boomed, cutting through the sound of the ocean waves and the screech of seagulls. Standing atop a precarious tower of crushed refrigerators and old tires was All Might. Even in his skeletal, true form, the sunken eyes, the sharp angles of his face, the oversized white t-shirt hanging off his bony frame, Toshinori Yagi carried an air of absolute authority. "You're slowing down!" All Might called out, coughing slightly into his fist before resuming his pose. "The tide waits for no man, and neither does the UE entrance exam. We are 4 months into the plan. Efficiency, my boy. Efficiency." Izuku wiped sweat from his forehead, leaving a streak of grease across his freckles. He looked down at the object of his current misery, a massive, waterlogged safe that looked like it had been sitting in the sand since the dawn of the Quirk era. "I know, All Might," Izuku wheezed. He bent his knees, gripping the rusted edges of the safe. "It's just, the friction coefficient of the sand is higher today because of the rain last night, and the angle of the incline is roughly 30 degrees, so I need to adjust my center of gravity lower than usual to compensate for the slippage. But my lower back is already fatigued from the tires, so if I lift with my legs I risk hyperextension unless I—" "Too much thinking!" All Might shouted, jumping down from his perch. He landed lightly, kicking up a cloud of dust. "Just grip it and rip it! Put your back into it! Clench your buttocks and yell from the diaphragm." Izuku stared at the number 1 hero. "Clench my buttocks? It creates a stable core," All Might insisted, giving a thumbs up. "Go beyond! Plus ultra!" Izuku sighed, a long, ragged sound. He turned back to the safe. He closed his eyes. "Stable core. Stable core. Just move it," he heaved. His muscles, screaming in protest, tightened. The tendons in his neck strained against his skin. With a guttural cry that sounded more like a dying cat than a battle roar, he yanked the safe upward. It shifted, groaned, and then slid a grand total of 3 inches before Izuku's foot slipped on a patch of slime. He went down hard, face planting into a pile of wet newspapers. The safe settled back into its groove with a mocking thud. All Might winced. "Ooh. That looked unpleasant." Izuku rolled onto his back, staring up at the pre-dawn sky. The clouds were beginning to bruise with purple and orange light. He felt tears pricking the corners of his eyes, not from pain, though everything hurt, but from frustration. "I'm not getting it," Izuku whispered. All Might walked over, offering a hand. His grip was gentle, surprisingly so for a man who could change the weather with a punch. He hoisted Izuku up as if he weighed nothing. "You are getting stronger, young Midoriya," All Might said softly, his voice dropping the booming persona. "Look at the shoreline. You've cleared nearly a quarter of the park. I'm getting stronger at moving trash," Izuku muttered, dusting off his pants. "But, All Might, am I getting stronger at fighting?" The question hung in the air, heavier than the humidity. All Might blinked. He looked at the boy, his successor, the vessel he had chosen for one for all. He saw the determination, the heart, the self-sacrificing spirit. But he also saw the flinch. He saw the way Izuku's shoulders hunched when he wasn't lifting something. He saw the boy who had spent a decade being told he was glass, waiting to be shattered. "Combat is instinctual," All Might said, scratching the back of his head. "Once you have the power, the body just knows. You see the villain, you know where to hit, and you hit them. Smash. Simple." Izuku pulled a notebook from his back pocket. Hero Analysis for the Future, Volume 13. which was miraculously dry. But looking at the footage of your debut, or endeavors, or even best jeanist, there's technique, there's footwork. When I try to shadowbox, I just feel like I'm flailing. If I inherit your power and I can't control my own limbs, won't I just blow myself up? All Might began to sweat. A thick, nervous bead rolled down his temple. The truth was, Toshinori Yagi was a natural. A prodigy. When he had received one for all from Nana Shimura, he could use 100% almost immediately. He didn't have to learn how to throw a punch, he simply punched, and the world rearranged itself around his fist. He was a symbol, a pillar, a force of nature. He was realizing with sinking dread, a terrible teacher. Well, All Might stammered, blood coughing slightly from the corner of his mouth. We have time. The vessel must be ready before we pour the water, right? First, muscles. Then, fighting, right? Izuku said, though his voice lacked conviction. He looked at his hands. They were calloused, cut, and trembling. I want to be ready. Not just strong. Ready. All Might looked at the boy, really looked at him. He saw the overanalysis, the mumbling, the hesitation. Izuku Midoriya lived entirely in his own head. He treated every movement like a math equation to be solved. He needs to get out of his head, All Might thought. And I am the wrong person to pull him out. Take a 5-minute break, my boy, All Might said abruptly. Hydrate. I need to make a phone call. A phone call? It's 5 a.m. Heroes never sleep, All Might declared, striking a pose before turning and walking briskly toward the vending machines by the park entrance. Izuku watched him go, then collapsed onto a semi-dry car tire. He opened his notebook, clicking his pen. Entry 442, Muscle Fatigue Recovery Rates. Protein Intake. If I adjust my sleep schedule by 20 minutes. By the vending machines, Toshinori Yagi huddled over his cell phone. He scrolled through his contacts, past Gran Torino. He shuddered and skipped that one immediately, past Detective Sakachi, past David Shield. He stopped at a name near the bottom. A contact he had acquired 3 years ago after a joint operation in Fukuoka involving a rampaging kaiju villain and a collapsed suspension bridge. He hesitated. She was difficult, intense, abrasive. But as he looked back at the beach, where a small, green-haired boy was currently muttering to himself and drawing diagrams in the sand, Toshinori knew he didn't have a choice. He needed someone who understood movement. Someone who fought not with the overwhelming pressure of a god, but with the desperate, violent scrambling of a beast. He pressed the call button. It rang once. What? The voice on the other end was loud enough that Toshinori had to hold the phone away from his ear. There was the sound of wind rushing in the background, followed by a sickening crunch and a man screaming, "My ribs!" "Ah, hello?" Toshinori said, putting on his hero voice despite being in his weak form. "Is this the rabbit hero Mirko? I'm busy, All Might!" Rumi Yasujiyama shouted. "I've got a group of bank robbers trying to outrun me on the highway." "Hold on." There was a noise that sounded like a car door being ripped off its hinges, followed by the screech of tires and a massive crash. "Okay, they're in a ditch now." Mirko's voice returned, breathless and exhilarated. "Why are you calling me at the crack of dawn? Are you dying? Is the sky falling?" No, nothing like that," All Might said. I need a favor." Silence on the line. Then, a sharp, barking laugh. "The symbol of peace needs a favor from me? This ought to be good. Did you lose your wallet? Need help moving a couch? Actually, it's about moving trash," All Might admitted. "And teaching." "Teaching?" Mirko snorted. "I don't do sidekicks. I don't do interns. I work alone. You know this. It's not for a sidekick," All Might said, his voice turning serious. "It's for a project. A boy. He has heart, Mirko. He has more heart than anyone I've ever met. But he thinks too much. He freezes. He lacks instinct. And you want me to give it to him? I want you to see if he has it inside him," All Might corrected. "I can build his body. I can give him the tools. But I cannot teach him how to use them. I punch. He needs to do more than punch. Where are you? Dagoba Beach. The dump? She groaned. Fine. I'm in the area anyway. I'll give you 10 minutes. If he bores me, I'm leaving. 10 minutes is all I ask. Don't make me regret this, Whiskers. The line went dead. Toshinori stared at the phone, exhaling a long breath. He hoped he hadn't just signed Izuku's death warrant. Izuku was currently trying to drag a rusted engine block across the sand using a rope tied around his waist. If I lean forward at a 45-degree angle, he mumbled, sweat dripping off his nose, I can maximize the horizontal force vector while minimizing the downward pressure that causes the sand to displace. But my quads are burning. Is that lactic acid buildup or actual muscle tearing? Recovery girl said to watch out for sharp pains, but this is a dull throb, so it should be okay. Boom. The explosion of sand happened 10 feet in front of him. It wasn't a bomb. It was an impact. A shockwave rippled outward, knocking Izuku backward onto his butt. The engine block jerked, then settled. A cloud of dust and sand plumed into the air, obscuring the sun. Izuku scrambled backward, his heart hammering against his ribs. Villain attack? Now? Here? As the dust settled, a silhouette emerged. She was crouching in the crater she had created. White hair stood up like a lion's mane, no, a rabbit's ears. Her skin was dark, her eyes red and piercing. She was wearing a white leotard with a purple crescent moon on the chest, and thick, metal-plated boots that looked like they could shear through concrete. She stood up slowly. Her legs were incredible, thick with muscle, scarred, and powerful. She radiated an aura of pure, unadulterated violence. The number 5 hero. The rabbit hero. Mirko. Izuku stopped breathing. His fanboy brain short-circuited. Rumi Yusujiyama. Quirk, rabbit. Enhanced leg strength, hearing, and instinct. Known for her solo agency and high-speed takedowns, her lunar arc kick is capable of decapitating a Noma-class threat, theoretically. She's here. Mirko looked around the trash-filled beach with a sneer. She kicked a loose soda can, sending it flying with the velocity of a bullet. It punched a hole through a nearby refrigerator. What a dump! She spat. She turned her red eyes onto Izuku. Izuku squeaked. So, she said, her voice rough and loud. This is the charity case? All Might stepped out from behind a stack of tires. He had puffed up into his muscle form for the introduction, steam rising from his skin. I am here! And thank you for coming, Mirko! Mirko rolled her eyes. Cut the pose, Yagi. You look ridiculous standing on a pile of garbage. All Might deflated, literally, poofing back into his skeletal form. Right. Yes. Well, Mirko turned back to Izuku. She walked toward him. Izuku scrambled to stand up, tripping over his own rope. He managed to get to his feet, trembling, staring at the ground. Look at me, kid! She ordered. Izuku forced his head up. Her eyes were intense, searching. She walked a circle around him, poking his arm, slapping his back, kicking his shin lightly. Ouch, scrawny, she assessed. Nervous. Mutters to himself. Doesn't know where to put his hands. Why does he look like he's about to apologize for existing? He's a late bloomer. All Might said diplomatically. We're working on the confidence. Mirko stopped in front of Izuku. She leaned in, her face inches from his. He could smell ozone and sweat. Hey, kid! You want to be a hero? Why, yes, ma'am! Izuku stammered. Why? To save people. To save everyone with a smile. Like All Might, Mirko scoffed. She stepped back, crossing her arms. Like All Might. Of course. Everyone wants to be the big, smiling statue. But tell me something, kid. What happens when the smile doesn't work? What happens when you're bleeding out in an alleyway and there's no camera crew and the villain doesn't care about your ideals? Izuku blinked. I would keep fighting. How? She challenged. Show me. How? Hit me. Izuku froze. What? You heard me. Hit me. Punch me, kick me, bite me, I don't care. Put me on the ground. But you're a pro hero. I can't. I'm just... Izuku looked at his hands. They were shaking. I haven't learned any combat yet. All Might said we were doing conditioning first and then. Mirko moved. It wasn't teleportation, but to Izuku, it might as well have been. 1 second she was 5 feet away. The next, her shin was buried in his stomach. The air left Izuku's lungs in a violent whoosh. He folded in half, his feet leaving the ground, and he was launched backward. He crashed into a pile of blue trash bags filled with aluminum cans. Pain radiated from his midsection. He curled into a ball, gasping, trying to remember how to breathe. Pathetic, Mirko said cold. Mirko! All Might shouted, stepping forward. That was excessive! He is quirkless right now, so? Mirko didn't look at All Might. She kept her eyes on the boy in the trash. Villains don't care if you have a quirk. Villains don't care if you're ready. You think the world waits for you to finish your training arc? Get up, Izuku wheezed, spit trailing from his mouth. Get up. Get up. He rolled onto his knees. His stomach felt like it was on fire. He looked up at her. She wasn't smiling. She looked bored. All Might told me you had heart, Mirko said, walking slowly toward him. He said you had the spirit. All I see is a fan but playing dress-up. You're waiting for instructions. You're waiting for someone to tell you the correct way to fight. There is no correct way, kid. There's alive, and there's dead. She raised a leg, bringing it down like an axe. Izuku rolled. It wasn't a graceful roll. It was a clumsy, desperate scramble. Her heel smashed into the sand where his head had been a second ago, sending a tremor through the ground that rattled his teeth. Oh? Mirko grinned. A feral, sharp-toothed grin. You can move. Good. Keep moving, she lunged again. A sweeping kick. Izuku ducked, feeling the wind of her boot ruffle his hair. He scrambled backward, his shoes slipping on the loose sand. Analyze, his brain screamed. She favors her right leg. She telegraphs with a slight twitch of her ears. The sand is loose, she can't get full traction, but neither can I. If I can create distance. Stop thinking! Mirko shouted, appearing right in front of him. She kneed him in the chest, softer this time, but enough to knock him flat on his back. I can hear your gears turning. You're calculating the odds. You're looking for a strategy. By the time you find one, you'll be dead, Izuku gasped, staring up at the sky. Everything hurt. Why was this happening? All Might was supposed to be teaching him. Why was this crazy woman beating him up? Stand up! Mirko barked. Izuku's arms shook as he pushed himself up. His legs felt like jelly. Why? Izuku rasped. Why are you doing this? Because All Might is too nice, Mirko said. She stood relaxed, hands on her hips. He's the symbol of peace. He doesn't know what it's like to be the underdog. He doesn't know what it's like to have to claw your way up from the bottom with nothing but your own grit. He thinks power is a gift. I think power is something you take. She pointed a finger at him. You want his power? Prove you can survive long enough to use it. Attack me. Izuku looked at All Might. The skeletal man looked pained, torn between intervening and letting the lesson play out. He gave Izuku a small, helpless nod. Izuku gritted his teeth. He clenched his fists. Just smash it. Just hit her. He ran forward. He pulled his arm back, telegraphing his punch from a mile away. He yelled, trying to summon that stable core All Might talked about. Mirko didn't even dodge. She caught his fist in her open palm. The impact made a dull thwack. She looked unimpressed. That's it? That's the punch of the future symbol? She twisted his wrist. Izuku yelped, his body forced to rotate to avoid the pain. As he turned, she kicked him in the rear, sending him face first into the sand. Garbage, she declared. You fight like a textbook. A boring, poorly written textbook. Izuku lay in the sand, the grit grinding into his cheek. Shame burned hotter than the physical pain. She was right. He was just imitating what he thought a hero should be. He was mimicking All Might's stance, All Might's punch. He was a cargo cult hero, going through the motions hoping the planes would land. I'm done, Mirko said, turning to All Might. He's got no instinct. He's too domesticated. Find another successor, Yagi. This one's rabbit food. She started to walk away, Something snapped inside Izuku. It wasn't a heroic resolve. It wasn't a noble desire to save the world. It was something darker, simpler. It was the stinging in his cheek. It was the years of Bakugo's explosions popping against his skin. It was the word Deku. It was the feeling of being looked down on, stepped over, dismissed. Rabbit food? The sand crunched. Mirko's ears twitched. She stopped. Izuku wasn't standing up. He was launching himself from the ground. He didn't form a fist. He didn't yell smash. He didn't think about his form or his center of gravity. He just threw himself at her. He dove for her legs. It was ugly. It was desperate. He scrambled on all fours like a beast, sand flying from his heels. He lunged, wrapping his arms around her left boot, digging his fingers into the metal plating. Mirko looked down, surprised. What the? Don't! Izuku growled, his voice cracking. Don't walk away! He yanked. He put every ounce of his cleaning the beach muscles into it. He twisted his body, using his own weight as an anchor. Mirko didn't fall. She was far too strong for that. But she wobbled. She had to take a step back to regain her balance. Izuku didn't let go. He bit down, not on her, but on his own lip, drawing blood. He scrambled up her leg, using her body as a climbing wall, desperate to find a hold, to find a weak point. He wasn't fighting like a hero. He was fighting like a cornered animal. He reached for her belt, trying to unbalance her. Mirko's eyes widened. A grin, slow and sharp, spread across her face. She grabbed him by the back of his collar. Better! She laughed. She threw him. Izuku flew through the air, flailing. He managed to tuck his chin this time, landing in a roll that was still sloppy but didn't break any bones. He skidded to a halt, breathing heavy, his eyes wild. He didn't wait. He didn't analyze. He scrambled back to his feet and raised his hands, not in fists, but open, grappling, ready to tear. He was vibrating. The fear was gone, replaced by a high-pitched ringing in his ears. The adrenaline. Mirko stood there, hands loose at her sides. She wasn't looking at him like a bug anymore. She was looking at him like a snack. But a spicy one. Come on then! She shouted, spreading her arms. Come and get it, Deku! Izuku roared. He charged. He feinted left. It was clumsy, but it was a feint. Mirko twitched to follow. Izuku dropped low, sliding on his knees across the sand baseball style, trying to sweep her ankles again. Mirko hopped over him easily. Too slow, but as she was in the air, Izuku kicked upward. Both legs. A desperate donkey kick aimed at where she would land. It didn't connect. Mirko twisted in midair, landing on his extended legs. She stomped him down into the sand, pinning his legs with her feet. Izuku didn't surrender. He grabbed a handful of sand and threw it at her face. All Might gasped. Young Midoriya! That's dirty! Mirko blinked, shielding her eyes. Ha! She stepped off him. Izuku scrambled back, panting, wiping sand from his own mouth. He crouched, ready to go again. He was bruised, bleeding from his lip, and covered in filth. He looked absolutely wretched. Mirko wiped the sand from her cheek. She looked at the grit on her glove. Then she looked at Izuku. She laughed. It was a loud, booming sound that startled the seagulls. Sand in the eyes? She cackled. Pocket sand? Is that your ultimate move? I couldn't reach you. Izuku wheezed, not dropping his guard. I needed an opening, Mirko grinned. She walked over to him. Izuku flinched, preparing for another hit, but she stopped 2 feet away. She reached out and ruffled his hair, rough, messing up the green curls even more. You're a messy fighter, kid, she said. No form. No grace. You fight like a rat in a sewer. She leaned in close. I like it. Izuku blinked, the adrenaline fading, leaving him trembling. You do? All Might wants you to be a tank, Mirko said, glancing over her shoulder at the skeletal man who was looking very relieved. But you're not a tank. You're small. You're fast. You're jumpy. And when pushed, you get mean. She slapped his shoulder hard enough to make him stagger. I'll take the job, Yagi, she called out. All Might let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 10 minutes. Oh, thank goodness. Mirko turned back to Izuku. Listen up, because I'm only going to say this once. From today on, All Might handles the heavy lifting. He can teach you how to be a symbol or whatever, but I am going to teach you how to stay alive. Izuku nodded frantically. Yes. Thank you. I won't let you down. I don't care if you let me down, Mirko said, her eyes narrowing. Just don't die. And kid, yes? Stop punching. You have terrible arms. Look at them. Noodles. She poked his bicep. But you carried that engine block with your legs. And when you attacked me, you went for the legs. You're a hopper, not a hitter. She pointed at his red sneakers. We're going to fix those. And we're going to fix you. You're going to learn to use your feet for something other than walking away. She pulled a card from her belt and flicked it at him. It spun through the air and embedded itself in the sand at his feet. Be at my gym in Roppongi tomorrow at 1800 hours. Don't be late. And wear shorts. You're going to do 1,000 squats before I even look at you. 1,000? Izuku paled. And if you vomit, you clean it up, she added cheerfully. Mirko turned, crouched, and then launched herself into the air. With a single bound, she cleared the pile of refrigerators, landing on a lamppost near the street. She looked back one last time, her silhouette framed against the rising sun. Hey, kid! She shouted. Izuku looked up. What's your name? Izuku Midoriya, he yelled back. Boring, she decided. I'll call you Usagi until you earn something better. See you tomorrow, bunny boy. She leaped away, disappearing into the city skyline. Izuku stared after her. The silence of the beach returned, save for the waves. All Might walked over, placing a hand on Izuku's shoulder. Well, that went better than expected. Izuku looked down at his hands. They were scraped and dirty. He touched his lip where he had bitten it. It stung. But for the first time in months, the anxiety in his chest felt different. It wasn't the heavy, suffocating weight of expectation. It was sharper. Hotter. It was the feeling of survival. All Might? Izuku said quietly. Yes, my boy, she said. She said I fight like a rat. All Might chuckled nervously. She has a colorful way with words. Do not take it to heart. You are. No, Izuku interrupted. He looked up, and there was a strange light in his green eyes. Not the starry-eyed look of a fan, but something focused. She was right. I couldn't beat her. I couldn't even touch her, so I just wanted to drag her down. He clenched his fist, but then, slowly, he unclenched it. He looked down at his legs. His calves were burning from the squatting, the running, the jumping. I think, Izuku whispered, I think I like kicking better. All Might looked at his successor. He saw the shift. It was subtle, but it was there. The boy who worshipped the ground All Might walked on was realizing that he couldn't walk the same path. He needed his own shoes. Then we shall focus on that, All Might said warmly. Legs. It is different. Unconventional. But perhaps that is what the world needs. Yeah, Izuku said. He picked up the card Mirko had thrown. It had a simple logo of a rabbit moon, Rumi Yusujiyama. Mirko Agency. All Might? Yes? I'm going to finish the beach. Oh, we can take a break for the day. You've been beaten up quite thoroughly. No, Izuku said firmly. He walked back to the engine block he had been dragging. He tied the rope around his waist again. If I'm going to do 1,000 squats tomorrow, I need to make sure my legs don't fall off today. He turned away from the ocean, facing the mountain of trash. He didn't analyze the angle. He didn't calculate the friction. He just dug his heels into the sand, gritted his teeth, and pushed. Move, he told his body. Don't think. Just move. The engine block slid. Faster this time. All Might watched him go, a proud smile stretching across his gaunt face. He pulled out his phone and sent a quick text to the contact labeled The Rabbit. Message, he didn't quit. Thank you, Rumi. A moment later, a reply buzzed. Message, don't thank me. Just make sure he eats enough protein. I'm going to break him apart and put him back together. If he dies, I'm suing you. All Might laughed, tucking the phone away. The sun fully crested the horizon, bathing the trash heap in gold. Long shadows stretched across the sand, one of a tall, skeletal man, and one of a small boy who was learning, slowly, how to hop. The address on the card led to a basement in Roppongi. It wasn't the glitzy, high-rise Roppongi of expensive nightclubs and foreign diplomats. It was the underbelly, a narrow alleyway squeezed between a pachinko parlor and a yakitori shop that smelled of burnt grease and old beer. The door was heavy iron, rusted at the hinges, with no sign, no hero logo, and definitely no welcome mat. Just a crude drawing of a rabbit's head spray-painted in white stencil. Izuku Midoriya stood before it, vibrating with a mixture of terror and awe. He checked his watch. 17:58, 2 minutes early. He looked down at his attire. He was wearing his standard P uniform, blue with white stripes, and his red oversized sneakers. He had brought a water bottle, a towel, and 3 notebooks, Hero Analysis Volume 13, Quirk Theory Volume 4, and a new one titled Rabbit Hero, Combat Speculation. He took a deep breath. Okay. This is it. The number 5 hero. All Might trust her. She's intense. But she's a pro. Just be polite. Just be diligent. He knocked. The door didn't open. Instead, a camera mounted in the corner swiveled with a mechanical whir. A speaker crackled. It's unlocked, idiot. Push. Izuku jumped, squeaked a sorry, and pushed the door. It was incredibly heavy. He had to lean his entire body weight against it, his sneakers squeaking on the pavement, until it groaned open with a metal screech. Inside, the air changed. The humidity of the Tokyo summer vanished, replaced by a dry, refrigerated chill that smelled of chalk, iron, and antiseptic. The gym was a cavern. There were no treadmills. There were no elliptical machines with TV screens. There were no motivational posters saying, "Hang in there." It was a dungeon of concrete and steel. Massive chains hung from the ceiling. Tractor tires were stacked in corners. The floor was covered in high-density mats that looked like they had been clawed by wild animals. In the center of the room was a boxing ring, but the ropes had been torn down, leaving just a raised platform. And in the middle of that platform sat Mirko. She was in a split, her chest flat against the floor, reading a manga. She didn't look up. "You're 30 seconds late," she said. But," Izuku stammered, checking his watch. "It's 1800 hours exactly. The door takes 20 seconds to open if you're weak," she said, turning a page. "You should have accounted for the resistance. That's 20 seconds a villain could use to kill a hostage. You're late." She snapped the manga shut and tossed it aside. She stood up in one fluid motion, no hands, just legs powering her upright like a loaded spring. She was wearing a black tank top and compression shorts today. The scars on her legs were more visible under the harsh fluorescent lights, jagged white lines that told stories of battles Izuku had only read about in forums. "Well?" she barked. "What are you standing there for? The squat rack is over there. You owe me 1,000, Izuku swallowed hard. "Right. Yes. 1,000 squats." He dropped his bag and scurried over to the corner. He started to lower himself. "Stop," Mirko said. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the room instantly. Izuku froze mid-squat. "What are those?" She pointed at his feet. My shoes, they're cushions," she scoffed, hopping off the platform and stalking toward him. "Thick foam soles. High ankle support. They're designed to comfort you. To protect your little feet from the ground." She reached into a crate near the wall and pulled out a pair of boots. They looked menacing. Black leather, steel-toed, with a sole that looked like a jagged tire tread. But the most disturbing part was the sound they made when she dropped them. Thud. "Steel-lined soles," she explained. 5 kilograms each. Put them on. 5 kilograms? Izuku paled. Per foot? You want to kick like a hero, or you want to kick like a toddler? Legs are heavy, kid. When you're in the air, your legs are your hammers. If you can't control the weight, you'll tear your own hips out of their sockets. Put them on. Izuku scrambled to change his shoes. As he laced up the heavy boots, he felt his legs getting tired just lifting his feet. It felt like he was wearing concrete blocks. "No," Mirko said, leaning against a pillar, crossing her arms. Squat. Keep your back straight. If your heels lift, I add weight. If you whine, I add weight. If you stop, well, don't stop, Izuku began. 1. The weight was manageable. 10. He could feel the pull in his calves. 50. The sweat started to drip. 100. His quads were burning. The boots felt like they weighed 50 kilos, not 5. Every time he lowered himself, the steel soles dragged him down, and he had to fight the momentum to stand back up. Mirko watched him like a hawk. She didn't offer encouragement. She didn't say, "Good job." She just paced around him, correcting his form with sharp pokes of her toe. Lower. Your glutes are weak. Engage the core. Stop looking at the floor isn't going to attack you. Look at me. 300. Izuku's vision was swimming. His breath was coming in ragged gasps. All Might didn't make me do this, he wheezed. All Might is a natural, Mirko said, her voice floating through the haze of Izuku's exhaustion. He was born a tank. You weren't. You're a twig. If a twig tries to act like a tank, it snaps. We need to turn the twig into a whip. Flexible. Fast. And when it snaps the sound barrier, not itself. 500. Izuku fell. His legs simply gave out. He collapsed onto the mat, his chest heaving. Get up, Mirko said. I can't. Get up. She stomped the ground near his head, the vibration rattling his skull. A villain just knocked you down. Are you going to tell them you're tired? Are you going to ask for a timeout? No. Izuku gritted his teeth. He dug his fingers into the mat. He forced his trembling legs to obey. He rose, shaking violently. Good, Mirko whispered, her red eyes gleaming. 501. 2 months later, the Dagoba Municipal Beach Park had changed. It was no longer just a trash heap. Under Mirko's supervision, and her terrifying threats, Izuku hadn't just cleared the trash, he had rearranged it. Instead of piling everything into trucks immediately, Mirko had instructed him to build the Warren. It was an obstacle course from hell. Stacks of refrigerators formed towering pillars. Rusted cars were arranged in stepping stone patterns across sinking sand. Old tires were hung from ropes suspended between lampposts. It was 5 a.m. The sun was barely up. Go! Mirko shouted from atop a pile of washing machines. Izuku didn't run. He bounded. He wore the weighted boots constantly now. At school, at home, in his sleep. His legs had thickened, the muscles defined and corded like steel cables under his skin. He moved with a strange, loping gait that was entirely unlike All Might's heavy stomps. He leaped from a car hood to the top of a vending machine. He didn't land flat-footed. He landed on the balls of his feet, absorbing the impact silently, before springing to the next point. Too slow! Mirko yelled. She flicked a pebble at him. It hit him in the back of the head. Ouch! Izuku didn't stop. He grabbed a hanging tire, swung, and launched himself over a gap of jagged scrap metal. In the beginning, he had tried to calculate the jumps. Velocity equals distance over time, wind resistance is. That had resulted in broken ribs. Now, he didn't do the math. He felt the math. He looked at a gap and his body simply knew if he could make it. It was a sensation in his gut, a tightening of the muscles that said yes or no. Incoming! Izuku ducked instinctively. Mirko came flying out of nowhere, her legs sweeping through the space where his head had been. This was the new routine. Sparring wasn't standing in a ring. Sparring was survival. She would hunt him through the trash maze. If she caught him, she hit him. If he fell, she hit him. The only way to avoid pain was to be faster, to be higher, to be unreachable. Izuku rolled across the top of a rusted bus, sliding under Mirko's follow-up kick. He scrambled to the edge and backflipped off, catching a chain and swinging down to the sand. He landed in a crouch, sliding backwards, his eyes locked on her. Better! Mirko grinned, landing on the bus with a heavy thud. You stop twitching before you move. Izuku stood up, wiping sweat from his forehead. He was covered in scratches. His hands were taped up. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were sharp. I'm learning to read your knees, Izuku panted. You dip your left knee 2 centimeters before you lunge right. Mirko paused. She looked at her knee. Then she laughed. Oh? Analyzing me, Famba? I can't help it, Izuku said, reaching for his notebook which was tucked into his waistband. But I'm trying to do it faster. Instead of writing it down, I'm trying to picture the notebook pages in my head while I move. Still too much brain, Mirko criticized, hopping down. She walked over to him, looking him up and down. But your body is catching up. You're not a scarecrow anymore. She circled him, poking his arms. Your arms are still noodles though. I'm doing the push-ups you said, Izuku protested. Arms aren't for hitting, Usagi, Mirko said, tapping his forehead. We went over this. What are arms for? Stability, Izuku recited. Balance. Grappling. And saving people. Exactly. Mirko's expression turned serious. Listen to me, because Yagi won't tell you this. He's too obsessed with the image of the invincible hero. But combat is chaotic. If you use your arms to punch, you can't use them to carry the victim. If you're busy swinging your fists, who is holding the debris off the child? Who is pulling the civilian out of the fire? She kicked the air, her legs snapping like a whip. Legs are for violence. Legs are for movement. Legs are the engine. Arms are the steering wheel. You keep your hands free so you can save the things that matter. You let your feet destroy the things that don't. Izuku looked at his hands. He imagined holding someone, his mother, Uraraka, a child. If he was punching with these hands, he would have to let them go. It makes sense, Izuku murmured. It actually makes more sense than All Might's way. Don't let him hear you say that. Mirko smirked. He'll cry blood. She checked the sky. All right. Break time. Eat your protein. If I see you eating bread, I'll kick it out of your mouth. Yes, ma'am. As Izuku sat down on a tire to drink his protein shake, which tasted like chalk and sadness, he saw All Might watching from the promenade. The hero gave a small, hesitant wave. Izuku waved back. He noticed All Might looking at Mirko with a mix of gratitude and slight fear. He's letting her mold me, Izuku realized. He stepped back. That must be hard for him. Izuku squeezed his heavy boots. I have to make this work. For both of them. Month 9, the predator and the prey. Winter had come and gone. The entrance exam was 1 week away. The beach was gone. Not the park itself, but the trash. It was pristine. The sand was golden, raked clean. The water sparkled, free of oil slicks and floating debris. The only evidence of the chaotic training ground were the deep, packed down trails in the sand where Izuku had run thousands of laps, and the indentations on the few remaining permanent fixtures where he had practiced his jumps. Izuku stood by the water's edge. He was shirtless. He had changed. The baby fat was gone, burned away by the fires of hellish cardio. He was lean, ripped with functional muscle. His back was a map of muscles shifting under the skin. He didn't have All Might's bulk. He would never be a refrigerator of a man. But he looked like a coiled spring. He was vibrating with energy. He felt light. Mirko had finally allowed him to take the weighted boots off for the final week. He felt like if he jumped, he might accidentally reach orbit. Hey, Izuku turned. Mirko was standing there, holding 2 cans of iced coffee. She threw one at him. He caught it without looking, his hand snapping out to snatch it from the air. Nice reflexes. She grunted. Thanks. Izuku cracked the can open. You're done, she said. Done? I've taught you how to move. I've taught you how to fall without dying. I've taught you that pain is just information. She took a sip of her coffee. The rest is up to the quirk. And your own brain. She looked at him, her red eyes uncharacteristically soft. Or as soft as Mirko could get, which was slightly less murderous. You're weird, Midoriya. Thanks? Most people, when I push them this hard, they break. Or they quit. Or they start hating me. You just got quiet. Izuku looked at the horizon. I used to talk a lot because I was scared. I was trying to justify why I was there. Trying to prove I existed. He crushed the empty coffee can in his hand. I don't feel like I need to prove it anymore. I'm here. If they don't see me, I'll kick them until they do. Mirko threw her head back and laughed. It was a genuine, howling laugh. She slapped his back hard enough to leave a handprint. That's it. That's the feral look. Keep that. When you go to UA, don't be the polite little nerd. Be the rabbit. Fast, annoying, and impossible to pin down. All Might appeared then. He was walking down the stairs, carrying a small, lacquered box. He looked solemn. Young Midoriya, All Might said. Mirko, here comes the speech. Mirko whispered to Izuku. All Might stopped in front of them. He looked at the clean beach, then at Izuku. Tears welled up in his sunken eyes. You have done it, All Might said, his voice trembling. You have exceeded my expectations. You have built a vessel worthy of the power. He opened the box. Inside, resting on a velvet cushion, was a single strand of blonde hair. Mirko snorted. Seriously? A box? You put a hair in a jewelry box? It is ceremonial. All Might defended, blushing. This is a sacred passing of the torch. He turned back to Izuku, regaining his composure. Izuku Midoriya. This is the power that has been passed down for generations. Cultivated by the hopes of those who seek peace. Now, it is your turn to cultivate it. All Might picked up the hair. He held it out. Eat this. Izuku stared at the hair. Then at All Might. Then at Mirko. Mirko made a gagging noise. Gross. Just swallow it with water, kid. Don't chew. Izuku took the hair. It was light. It felt insignificant. But he knew the weight it carried. This was All Might's life. This was the future. He didn't hesitate. He popped it into his mouth, took a swig of water, and swallowed. He waited. Nothing happened. Izuku said. It takes a few hours to digest and merge with your DNA. All Might explained. By this afternoon you should feel a change. Great. Mirko clapped her hands. That gives us time. Time for what? All Might asked. A field test. Mirko grinned. Get in the car, kid. We're going to the scrapyard. The scrapyard, later that afternoon. The Takoba Municipal Scrapyard was where cars went to die. It was a maze of crushed metal, jagged spikes, and towering piles of rust. Mirko stood atop a crushed van, looking down at Izuku. All Might stood safely fast away, near the entrance. Okay! Mirko shouted. Do you feel it? Izuku closed his eyes. He reached inside himself. For months, he had felt nothing but his own exhaustion. But now, there was something else. It felt like a ball of fire in his stomach. No, not fire. Electricity. A humming, buzzing, violent energy that wanted to get out. I feel it. Izuku whispered. He opened his eyes. They seemed to glow slightly. It's loud. Let it out. Mirko ordered. But don't you dare just stand there and flex. I want to see it in motion. Attack that pile of cars. She pointed to a stack of 3 sedans about 20 feet away. Smash it. Izuku nodded. He stepped forward. The energy surged. It flooded his veins. It was overwhelming. It was too much. How do I use this? His mind raced. All Might said to clench my buttocks and yell. Mirko said to flow. But it's so much power. If I let it all go, I'll explode. He tried to regulate it. He tried to grab the energy and push it into his arm. Arm punch. Like All Might, old habits died hard. In the face of this new, terrifying power, Izuku defaulted to the image of heroism he had held for 14 years. He visualized the symbol of peace. He visualized the fist. Smaz! Izuku screamed. He swung his right arm at the air, aiming the shockwave at the cars. Crack. The sound wasn't the cars breaking. It was the sound of a dry branch snapping, magnified 10 times. A blast of wind pressure exploded from his arm, tearing the top sedan in half and sending the pieces flying 50 meters. The shockwave kicked up a dust storm that rattled the windows of nearby buildings, but Izuku didn't see it. He was on his knees screaming. His right arm was purple. It hung at a wrong angle. The sleeve of his tracksuit had been obliterated. Young Midoriya! All Might shrieked, sprinting forward, but Mirko was faster. She landed in front of Izuku, her face twisted in fury. She didn't comfort him. She grabbed his collar with her left hand, hauling him up to his knees, ignoring his scream of pain. What was that? She roared in his face. I. Izuku sobbed, clutching his broken arm. I tried to smash. You tried to be him. Mirko shouted, pointing a finger at All Might, who skidded to a halt, looking horrified. You spent 10 months training with me. Mirko hissed, her voice dropping to a dangerous growl. 10 months learning to use your legs. 10 months learning to flow. To move. And the second you get power, you stand still and throw a punch? I didn't know how else. You're an idiot. She shoved him back. Izuku fell into the dirt, cradling his arm. All Might stepped in. Mirko! That is enough. He is injured. Recovery Girl needs to see him immediately. Mirko spun on All Might. He's injured because he mimicked you. Look at him, Yagi. He can't handle your output. If he tries to fight like you, he'll be a pile of broken bones before he turns 15. All Might flinched. He looked at Izuku's arm. It was a mess. I know. But he needs medical attention now. Mirko turned back to Izuku. Her anger seemed to evaporate, replaced by a cold, hard disappointment. You disrespected my training, she said quietly. Izuku looked up, tears streaming down his face. I'm sorry. It was just the power. It felt like it needed to be a punch. Power has no shape, kid, Mirko said. Water fits the cup. You tried to force an ocean into a straw. She crouched down. She poked his broken arm. Izuku hissed. Does it hurt? Yes. Good. Remember it. She stood up. Go to the nurse. Get fixed. But listen to me carefully. The entrance exam is in 3 days. If I see you throw another punch like that, if I see you break yourself to imitate a ghost, don't bother coming back to my gym. She turned and walked away, her boots crunching on the gravel. I don't train martyrs. I train survivors. The hospital, Recovery Girl's office. The healing process was exhausting. Izuku lay in the bed, his arm casted and bandaged. Recovery Girl had accelerated the healing, but the bone had been shattered. It would be tender for weeks. All Might sat in the chair next to the bed. He looked small in his civilian form. I'm sorry, my boy, All Might said. I did not explain the load. I assumed your body would naturally handle it. It's not your fault, Izuku whispered. He stared at the ceiling. He was replaying the moment in his head. The feeling of the power. It was like a wild horse. He had tried to grab it by the neck and force it. And it had kicked him. Mirko was right, he thought. I defaulted. I panicked. He looked at his legs under the sheet. They were fine. Strong. Capable. Why didn't I kick? Because he didn't believe in his own style yet. He still thought that real heroes punched. He closed his eyes. He visualized the power again. The spark. Don't bunch it up, he told himself. Don't put it all in one place. Spread it out. He imagined the power like water. Or like electricity. Flowing from his chest, down his hips, into his thighs, his calves, his toes. A faint green lightning crackled around his legs under the blanket. It hurt. It felt like his muscles were being stretched. But nothing broke. He held it for 2 seconds. Then he let it go. He opened his eyes. He was sweating. All Might? Yes? I can't use 100%. No. All Might agreed. It appears not. If I use 100% I break. So I have to use less. That is logical. But difficult to control. I have 3 days, Izuku said. He sat up. I have 3 days to figure out how not to explode. You should rest. No. Izuku swung his legs out of bed. He winced as his arm throbbed, but he stood up. He walked to the window. He could see his reflection. He looked tired. But he didn't look broken. He saw Mirko's face in his mind. I don't train martyrs. I'm going to go for a run, Izuku said. Izuku, just a run, All Might. No quirks. Just moving. I need to clear my head. I need to stop thinking about being you. He turned to his mentor. I need to figure out how to be me. 3 days later, the UA entrance exam. The gates of UA High School were massive. Hundreds of students were streaming in, chatting nervously. Izuku Midoriya stood at the gate. He wasn't wearing the standard middle school uniform most students wore. He had petitioned for a specific allowance due to sensory requirements, a lie Mirko had bullied the school board into accepting. He was wearing a dark green tracksuit, sleeves rolled up. And on his feet were the black, steel-soled combat boots. They were scuffed from months of abuse. He saw Katsuki Bakugo walking ahead. Bakugo glanced back, sneering. "Out of my way, Deku! Don't trip on your own shoelaces." In the past, Izuku would have flinched. He would have stuttered. Today, Izuku just adjusted his gloves. "Good morning, Kaken," Izuku said calmly. Bakugo paused. He narrowed his eyes. There was something different about the nerd. He wasn't hunched over. He was standing with his weight on the balls of his feet, like he was ready to bolt. "TCH, whatever. Just don't die." Bakugo stormed off. Izuku took a deep breath. He tapped the side of his leg. Full cowl is impossible, he thought. I tried it for 2 days. I can only hold the spread for about 3 seconds before the pain becomes blinding. I can't maintain it constantly like Mirko wanted. But, he flexed his toes inside the heavy boots. I can pulse it. I can flick the switch on and off. Just into the legs. Just for the moment of impact. Flow. Snap. Flow. Snap. He looked up at the massive glass building of UA. Instinct. He whispered to himself. He started walking. He didn't trip. He didn't fall. As he entered the orientation hall, he scanned the room. He saw Present Mike on the stage. He saw the other examinees. The written exam had been a blur of anxiety and frantic scribbling, but Izuku had managed. Years of obsessive note-taking and academic overcompensation had prepared him for the theory. He could calculate the trajectory of a villain's fall or cite the legal precedents for collateral damage in his sleep. But as the bus hissed to a halt in front of Battle Center B, the paper world vanished. The reality of steel and concrete loomed. Izuku stepped off the bus, the soles of his heavy, steel-lined boots clanking against the pavement. The sound was distinct, a dull, menacing thud-thud that was out of place among the scuffling of sneakers and running shoes worn by the other examinees. He adjusted the straps of his dark green tracksuit. It was a generic brand bought from a discount store, but he had modified it. He had sewn reinforced patches onto the elbows and knees, and the fabric was tight enough to prevent snagging but loose enough for a full range of motion. He looked up. The gates of Battle Center B were titanic, towering structures of steel that mocked the teenagers standing before them. Beyond the gates lay a replica of a cityscape, complete with office buildings, highways, and alleyways. "It's huge," a boy with spiky red hair whispered nearby. Izuku didn't speak. He was breathing in a specific rhythm Mirko had taught him. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4. Regulate the heart rate, her voice echoed in his mind. Adrenaline is fuel, but if you burn it all in the panic phase, you'll stall out when the fighting starts. He scanned the crowd. He saw the girl with the brown bob, Uraraka, looking nervous, touching her fingertips together. He saw the strict boy with glasses, Ida, stretching his calves with mechanical precision. Izuku felt a familiar urge to vomit, but he swallowed it down. He clenched his fists, then unclenched them. He shook his arms out. They felt loose. Weak. Arms are for balance, he reminded himself. Legs are for violence. He shifted his weight. The boots were heavy, 5 kilograms of steel and leather anchoring him to the earth. For the last 3 days he had walked without them, feeling light as a feather. But this morning, he had put them back on. Why? Because Mirko had told him. If you rely on feeling light, you'll get sloppy. Keep the weight. Make the weight part of the weapon. He closed his eyes and visualized the power of One for All. It was sitting in the pit of his stomach, a dormant, buzzing hornet's nest. He didn't dare wake it up yet. Not fully. He had learned the hard way at the scrapyard what happened when he opened the floodgates. Pulse, he thought. Just a spark. Ignition, then cut. Ignition, then cut. And start! The voice screamed from the top of a tower behind them. Present Mike. The crowd of examinees froze. They looked around, confused. Was there a countdown? A pistol shot? A buzzer? What's wrong? Present Mike bellowed, his voice amplified to ear-shattering levels. There are no countdowns in real battles. Run! Run! Die! The crowd hesitated for a fraction of a second. A collective synapse firing, but Izuku was already gone. The moment the word "start" had left the hero's lips, Izuku's body had reacted. It wasn't a conscious decision. It was Pavlovian. For 10 months go meant run or get kicked in the head. He exploded off the starting line. The heavy boots didn't slow him down. The momentum he generated from his low stance turned the weight into kinetic energy. He was a green blur, leaving the confused pack of students in the dust. He shot through the open gates, his eyes darting left, right, up, down, alleyway to the left. Main street clear for 50 meters. Rooftops accessible via fire escape. He entered the city alone, the first rat in the maze. The observation room. In a darkened room lined with monitors, the faculty of UA High watched the feeds. An energetic bunch this year. Midnight noted, swirling a glass of juice. The start is always chaotic. Cementos rumbled. They hesitate. They look for permission, except for that one. Aizawa Shota said, his tired eyes narrowing as he watched a specific screen. On the monitor labeled Center B, a green-haired boy was sprinting down the main avenue. He wasn't looking back. He wasn't looking for teammates. He was moving with a desperate, hungry speed. Midoriya Izuku, All Might said, his voice unusually high-pitched with nervousness. He was sitting in the back corner, trying not to look like he was hyperventilating. He's fast, Snipe commented. Is his quirk a speed type? Emitter? Mutant? Quirkless on record until recently. A gruff female voice spoke up from the shadows. Rumi Yusujiyama, Mirko, was leaning against the back wall, arms crossed, one foot resting on the back of a chair. She wasn't technically faculty, but Nisa had invited her. She claimed it was because she was bored. In reality, she was there to see if her project would crash and burn. He's not using a quirk yet, Mirko said, a savage grin tugging at her lips. That's just cardio. Battle Center B. The first robot appeared from behind a vending machine. It was a one-pointer. A monowheel drone with long, grasping arms and a red optical sensor. Target acquired. It buzzed violently. Eliminate. It lunged, closing the distance in seconds. Izuku didn't stop running. He didn't slow down to take a stance. Don't stop. Momentum is life. As the robot swiped at him with a metal claw, Izuku dropped. He slid on his knees, the steel toes of his boots sparking against the asphalt. He went under the arm, his body flat parallel to the ground. As he slid past, he didn't punch. He planted his hands on the ground, coiled his core, and kicked upward with both legs. It wasn't a powered kick. No one for all. Just pure, hysterical leg strength born from thousands of squats and dragging engine blocks through sand. Clang. His steel heels connected with the joint connecting the robot's wheel to its torso. The metal sheared. The robot tipped backward off balance. Izuku used the recoil to flip himself upright. He didn't wait to see it fall. He spun, grabbing the robot's extended arm, and used his weight to swing himself around behind it. He spotted the wiring on the back of the neck. Soft spot. Exposed cables. Pull. He grabbed the bundle of wires and yanked with everything he had. Sparks showered him. The robot spasmed and went dark, collapsing into a heap of scrap. 1 point. Too slow. Izuku muttered to himself, wiping grease from his cheek. That took 6 seconds. I need to be faster. He heard explosions behind him. The rest of the students had arrived. He could hear Bakugo's distinct screaming from a few blocks over. Kaken will clear the open areas, Izuku analyzed, his brain running parallel to his legs. He'll destroy everything in line of sight. I can't compete with that firepower. I need to be a scavenger. I need the tight spaces. The verticality. He looked up. A three-pointer, a massive, scorpion-like tank, was crawling down the side of an office building, tearing chunks of concrete loose. Izuku ran toward the building. He didn't look for the door. He jumped for the fire escape ladder. He missed the bottom rung, but scrambled up the brickwork, his fingers digging into the mortar, until he caught the metal railing. He hauled himself up. Climb. Jump. Hunt. The three-pointer saw him. It raised a machine gun turret. Izuku panicked. Guns! Rubber bullets, but they'll still hurt. He vaulted over the railing just as the bullets pinged against the metal. He was on the second-floor balcony. The robot was above him on the third. I can't reach it. He felt the hum in his stomach. The one for all. Just a pulse. Just to bridge the gap. He focused on his calves. He imagined a switch flipping. On. Green lightning arced around his legs. The veins throbbed. For a microsecond, the heavy steel boots felt like they weighed nothing at all. They felt like feathers. Izuku pushed off the balcony railing. Snap! The metal railing bent under the force. Izuku didn't jump, he launched. He flew upward, bypassing the third floor entirely, soaring past the robot's face. Too high. Too much power. He flailed in the air, realizing he had overshot. He was going to fly right past the robot and hit the wall. Improvise. He twisted his body. As he passed the robot's head, he lashed out with his left leg. A hook kick. The steel toe caught the robot's primary sensor eye. Crunch. The lens shattered. The force of the impact, amplified by the uncontrolled burst of one for all, snapped the robot's head back. It lost its grip on the wall. Izuku hit the wall of the building hard, knocking the wind out of himself. He slid down, grabbing a windowsill to stop his fall. Below him, the massive three-pointer crashed onto the pavement, exploding into a cloud of dust and parts. 4 points. Izuku hung from the windowsill, panting. His left leg throbbed. Not broken, but stung. The recoil of using the quirk, even for a second, was like firing a shotgun one-handed. Okay. He gasped. Okay. I can do this. Pulse. Impact. Recover. He pulled himself up and climbed through the window into the office building. He would hunt from the inside out. 20 minutes later, the exam was a chaotic war zone. Battle Center B was smoking. Debris littered the streets. Students were shouting, quirks were flashing. Izuku was a mess. His tracksuit was torn at the shoulder. He was covered in gray dust. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead where a piece of shrapnel had grazed him. 28 points. It wasn't enough. He knew it wasn't enough. He had heard someone yelling that they had 40. He was crouched on top of a lamppost, surveying the street. Below him, a boy with a laser naval belt was struggling against two two-pointers. I could steal those, Izuku thought. The thought was intrusive, predatory. He's having trouble. If I drop now, I can take the heads off both before he fires. Mirko's training had made him efficient, but it had also made him ruthless. In the dojo, hesitation meant pain. But before he could move, the laser boy fired, blasting both robots. Merci! The boy shouted, posing. Izuku cursed under his breath. He scanned again. To his right, an explosion rocked the street. Bakugo flew past, propelled by his explosions. He was laughing maniacally. Die! Die! 64 points! I'm the king! Bakugo didn't even see Izuku on the lamppost. To Bakugo, Izuku was invisible. Izuku dropped down to the street level. His legs were shaking. The heavy boots felt like lead anchors now. Every step was a battle against fatigue. 5 minutes left, he calculated. I need at least 10 more points to be safe. Where are they? The streets are picked clean. He ran toward the central plaza. It was a kill zone. Dozens of students were fighting over the scraps of remaining robots. A one-pointer rolled out. 3 students lunged for it instantly. Izuku stopped. He couldn't compete in a scrum. He didn't have the bulk or the flash. Think, Mirko says. When the prey is scarce, look where others aren't looking. He looked at the rubble. The robots came from underground hatches and alleyways. Suddenly, the ground trembled. It wasn't a vibration. It was an earthquake. The asphalt cracked. The students in the plaza stopped fighting. Silence fell over the battle center, heavy and suffocating. From the end of the main avenue, a shadow eclipsed the sun. It rose and kept rising. Higher than the office buildings. Higher than the billboards. The zero-pointer. It was a monstrosity of engineering. A green colossus on tank treads as wide as a highway. Its hands were the size of buses. Its face was a flat, featureless plate with 3 glowing red eyes. Gaawa! The roar of the machine was so loud it vibrated in Izuku's chest cavity. It punched the air out of his lungs. That's big. Someone whimpered. Run! Another screamed. The panic was instantaneous. It was a stampede. Students abandoned their fights, turned tail, and fled away from the Titan. It's a trap! It's just an obstacle! Don't fight it! Just run! Izuku stood frozen. His instinct, the survival instinct Mirko had hammered into him with bruises and insults, screamed one word: FLE. It's too big, his brain analyzed rapidly. There are no weak points. The armor plating is at least 10 inches thick. My boots won't scratch it. Even with one for all, I can't destroy that. Survival probability is 0. Retreat. Retreat immediately. His legs twitched, preparing to turn. He was fast. He could outrun this. He could be halfway to the gate in 30 seconds. He took a step back. Ow! The cry was faint, swallowed by the mechanical grinding of the zero-pointer's treads. Izuku stopped. He looked back toward the dust cloud billowing at the robot space. Through the haze he saw her. The girl with the bob cut. Uraraka. She was on the ground. A piece of concrete debris had fallen on her legs, pinning her. She was struggling to lift it, but she was exhausted. The zero-pointer was advancing. Its massive tread was descending, crushing the pavement, turning cars into pancakes. It was 50 meters away from her. Then 40. The other students were running past her. Some didn't see her. Others saw her but were too terrified to stop. Survival of the fittest, kid. If you can't move, you die. Mirko's voice was loud in his head. Izuku looked at Uraraka. She had stopped struggling. She was looking up at the tread descending toward her, her eyes wide with the realization of death. Izuku's analysis stopped. The math vanished. The probability charts burned up. The rabbit didn't run away. The rabbit turned and charged. The observation room. The gimmick is active, Midnight said, her tone serious. This tests their courage under overwhelming pressure. Most are fleeing. Sniper noted. A rational decision. The gap in power is insurmountable. Wait. Aizawa leaned forward. One of them is turning back. On the screen, the green speck was moving against the tide. He was sprinting directly toward the Colossus. Mirko stood up straight, her chair clattering back. Her hands gripped the back of the seat in front of her hard enough to puncture the leather. Don't be an idiot, Yasagi, she whispered. You can't kick that. The street. Izuku was screaming. He didn't know what he was screaming. Just a raw, guttural noise to force his legs to move faster than they had ever moved before. He reached the pile of debris. He grabbed the concrete slab pinning Uraraka. Get up! He yelled. He pulled. It wouldn't budge. It was too heavy. He activated the pulse. Green lightning flared. He yanked the slab up, tossing it aside like it was styrofoam. Uraraka gasped. You, run! Izuku ordered, but she tried to stand and collapsed. Her ankle was twisted at a sickening angle. I can't. The shadow fell over them. Izuku looked up. The zero-pointer was directly above them. The giant hand was coming down, not to grab, but to sweep the street clean. If they stayed on the ground, they would be crushed. If he tried to carry her, he wouldn't be fast enough. The hand covered the entire width of the street. There was only one way. He had to stop the hand. He had to kill the beast. Izuku looked at the robot's face, towering hundreds of feet in the air. Legs are the engine, he thought. Arms are the steering wheel. He crouched. He didn't assume a runner's stance. He assumed a jumper's stance. He bent his knees until his thighs were touching his calves. He closed his eyes for a microsecond. One for all. He didn't ask for a pulse. He didn't ask for a spark. He reached into the deep, dark well of the power, and he grabbed the bucket with both hands. Give me everything. The power surged. It wasn't a stream. It was a dam breaking. The veins in his legs bulged, glowing a violet, neon red beneath the green lightning. The fabric of his tracksuit pants ripped at the thighs. The asphalt beneath his steel boots cracked, then pulverized, creating a crater before he even moved. Smash! He didn't scream it. He exhaled it. He pushed off. The sound was like a cannon firing. A sonic boom erupted at street level, shattering the windows of every car within a block. Uraraka was blown backward by the wind pressure, rolling to safety against the wall. Izuku was gone. He was a missile. He shot straight up, riding the pillar of air pressure he had created. 50 feet. 100 feet. 200. The wind tore at his face. His skin rippled. The G-force was crushing him. He felt the bones in his right leg splinter under the sheer force of the takeoff, but the adrenaline masked the pain. He was level with the zero-pointer's face. The robot's 3 eyes glowed. It seemed to pause, processing the flea that had just jumped into its stratosphere. Izuku spun in the air. It was the movement Mirko had drilled into him 1,000 times on the suspended tires. Rotation adds force. Torque is power. He tucked his body, spinning like a buzzsaw. He channeled the remaining overflow of One for All into his left leg, the one that wasn't broken yet. He brought his heel down. It was an axe kick. A movement designed to split skulls. Lunar impact! His steel heel connected with the center of the robot's faceplate. Time seemed to freeze. Then, metal screamed. The faceplate didn't just dent, it caved in. The impact force traveled through the robot's chassis like a ripple through water. The head snapped backward, tearing free from the neck hydraulics. The shockwave blew the back of the robot's head out, sending gears and pistons raining down over the city. The massive machine began to tip. Explosions rippled down its spine. Izuku hung in the air for a second, suspended in the cloud of smoke and fire. I did it, he thought, detached. Then, the pain hit. It wasn't a throb. It was white-hot agony. His right leg was purple and swollen. His left leg, the impact leg, felt like it had been put through a meat grinder. The steel boot was gone, shattered on impact. His toes were broken. His ankle was dust. And then, gravity remembered him. He began to fall. The ground was rushing up fast. Izuku flailed his arms. Think. How do I land? I can't land, he realized with a terrifying clarity. My legs are gone. If I hit the ground, I die. He tried to activate One for All in his arm to create an air cushion. One arm. Detroit smashed to the ground. It's my only chance. He gritted his teeth, tears streaming from his eyes due to the wind and the pain. He pulled his fist back. Don't be a martyr, kid, Mirko's voice. I'm sorry, Mirko. I don't know how else to survive. He prepared to break his arm to save his life. Slap. He didn't hit the ground. He didn't hit anything. He stopped, hovering 3 feet above the pavement. His stomach lurched. He hung there, weightless, flailing weakly. Release! A strained voice cried. Izuku dropped the last 3 feet, landing on his back with a wet thud. He gasped, staring up at the smoke-filled sky. Uraraka was crouching next to him. She looked green. She leaned over and vomited sparkles onto the pavement. Nice catch! Izuku wheezed. Then, the darkness at the edge of his vision swarmed in. The adrenaline crash was brutal. His body shut down to protect the trauma. The last thing he heard was the sound of heavy boots running toward him, and the distant, shocked murmur of the other students. The observation room. Silence reigned. President Mick's mouth was open. Midnight had stopped swirling her glass. Aizawa was staring at the screen, his expression unreadable, but his eyebrows were raised. Power! All Might whispered, clutching his chest. That was too much power. He used 100% in a single kick. He destroyed the zero-pointer, Nisa said, his tail twitching with delight. With a kick. Fascinating. Usually, power types rely on upper body strength for such feats. This boy turned himself into a projectile. Mirko was the only one moving. She was already at the door. Where are you going? Midnight asked. To the infirmary. Mirko growled. I need to yell at him before he wakes up. And then, she paused at the door, looking back at the screen where Izuku's broken body was being loaded onto a stretcher by robots. A slow, terrifyingly proud grin spread across her face. And then I'm going to buy him a new pair of boots. The infirmary, 2 hours later. The smell of antiseptic was strong. Izuku woke up. The first thing he felt was the itching. The healing process. You're awake! An old voice croaked. Izuku blinked. Recovery girl was sitting on a stool, marking a clipboard. My legs! Izuku rasped. Shattered, she said bluntly. Multiple fractures in the tibia and fibula. Crush injury to the left foot. Ligament damage in the right knee. I've treated them, but you'll be on crutches for a week, and you'll be exhausted for 2, she sighed, hopping off the stool. You have a powerful quirk, Sonny. But your body can't handle it. If you keep doing that, you won't have legs to walk on by the time you're 20. I know, Izuku whispered. I didn't mean to use that much. It just happened. The door slammed open. Recovery girl didn't even flinch. Keep it down, Usajiyama. This is a hospital, Mirko strode in. She was still wearing her hero costume. She looked furious. She marched right up to the bed. Izuku shrank back into the pillows. Mirko! I'm sorry! I panicked. I tried to run but she was stuck and Mirko grabbed his face with one hand, squeezing his cheeks so his mouth puckered like a fish. Shut up, she said. She stared into his eyes. Her red irises were intense, searching. You broke your legs, she said. Yes. You destroyed a robot the size of a building. Yes. You saved the girl. Izuku blinked. Is she okay? She's fine. Just a sprained ankle and exhaustion. Mirko let go of his face. She crossed her arms. You failed the survival test, she stated. You put yourself in a position where you couldn't walk away. That's an F. Izuku looked down at his casted legs. I know. I'm sorry, however, Mirko continued, her voice softening just a fraction. You didn't punch it. Izuku looked up. You kicked it, she said. And you generated enough torque to decapitate a siege engine. Your form was sloppy. Your landing was non-existent. But the impact? She grinned. The impact was beautiful. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. She tossed it onto his chest. What's this? Izuku asked, picking it up with shaky hands. The bill for the boots you destroyed, she joked. Just kidding. It's a training schedule. As soon as those legs heal, we're doubling the squats. Doubling? You have too much power, kid. Your chassis can't handle the engine. We need to build you bigger tires. She turned to leave, her white hair swaying. Rest up, Usagi. You got into UA. The real hell starts in April. Izuku stared at her back. Wait, he said. I got in? But I have 0 points. I spent the whole exam running around and then I broke myself on a target worth 0. Mirko stopped at the door. She didn't turn around, but he could hear the smirk in her voice. You think UA is just about blowing things up? Don't be dense. She walked out. Izuku lay back, clutching the training schedule to his chest. He looked at the ceiling. He was in pain. He was exhausted. He had 0 combat points, but he had kicked a giant robot in the face, and for the first time in his life, he didn't feel like a Deku. He closed his eyes, and the image of the green lightning around his legs lingered in the darkness. Next time, he promised himself. Next time, I'll stick the landing. April had arrived in a wash of pale pink cherry blossoms and the scent of rain on hot asphalt. It was the season of new beginnings, of crisp uniforms, and for Izuku Midoriya, it was the season of pure, unadulterated terror masked by a face of stoic determination. Izuku stood in the hallway of his apartment, tightening the laces of his boots. They weren't the 5-kilogram Iron Maidens Mirko had forced him to wear for the last few months. Those had been destroyed in the zero-pointer incident, shattered into scrap metal by the sheer force of his own legs. These were new. A gift from All Might, custom-ordered from a support company in America. They were dark red, high tops, with a reinforced polymer sole and titanium plating over the toes. They were lighter than the training boots but heavier than sneakers. They felt serious. They felt like armor. Izuku? His mother Inko peeked around the corner. She looked anxious. She had been vibrating with anxiety ever since the acceptance letter arrived. Do you have your tissues? Your handkerchief? Your student ID? Your wallet? Your emergency protein bar? Izuku smiled, straightening up. The Yui uniform felt stiff on his shoulders. The gray blazer was a little tight around the chest and upper back, a testament to the muscle mass he had packed on, but loose around the waist. I have everything, Mom, he said. You look so grown up. She sniffled, tears instantly pooling in her eyes. And so sturdy. She reached out and patted his arm. She didn't feel the soft, doughy boy of a year ago. She felt rock-hard muscle under the fabric. It was a comfort, but also a terrifying reminder that her baby was walking into fire. "I'll be fine," Izuku promised. He adjusted his backpack. "I have to go. The trains will be crowded. Be careful. Don't break any bones. Listen to the teachers." "I will." Izuku stepped out the door and into the bright morning sun. He took a deep breath. The air tasted like opportunity. He checked his phone. One new message. "The rabbit, don't embarrass me. If you get expelled on the first day, I'm making you clean the gym with a toothbrush." Izuku swallowed hard. The threat was not a hyperbole. He pocketed the phone and began to walk toward the station. He didn't slouch. He didn't mutter. He walked with a long, loping stride, his eyes scanning the perimeter, his weight shifting onto the balls of his feet with every step. He wasn't just a student anymore. He was a survivor of the beach. He was a student of the Rabbit, Yue High School. The sheer scale of Yue was designed to intimidate. The H-shaped building dominated the skyline, a glass and steel fortress of heroism. Izuku navigated the halls, checking the map on his phone. Class 1A. When he found the door, he stopped. It was massive. Easily 10 feet tall. Designed for mutant quirks, he analyzed automatically. Accessibility for gigantification types. Or maybe just psychological warfare to make us feel small. He could hear voices inside. Loud voices. "Please don't be in my class. Please don't be in my class." He slid the door open. "Remove your foot from that desk immediately." A boy with glasses and engines in his calves, the one from the exam, was chopping his hand in the air robotically. "It is disrespectful to the UA, upperclassmen who used it before you, and to the craftsman who built it." "Huh?" Sitting with his feet crossed on the desk, looking like he owned the place, was Katsuki Bakugo. "Like I care about some old desk. What junior high are you from, you extra?" "I am from semi-private academy. My name is Tenya Ida." "Semi? A stuck-up elite, huh?" Bakugo grinned, a nasty expression that showed too many teeth. "I should blow you to bits." "Yep," Izuku thought, his stomach dropping. "They're both here." He tried to step in quietly, but Ida's sensors must have been calibrated to detecting new students. The tall boy spun around. "You!" Ida marched toward him. "You're the one from the entrance exam. The one who destroyed the zero-pointer." The room went silent. Everyone looked at Izuku. Bakugo's head snapped toward the door. His red eyes narrowed into slits. He didn't scream. He didn't explode. He just watched, his gaze burning with a mix of confusion and latent fury. "I'm Midoriya," Izuku said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Midoriya," Ida said, adjusting his glasses. "I misjudged you. During the exam, I thought you were merely panicked. But you perceived the true nature of the test, the rescue component, before anyone else. I was blind. You are a superior candidate." I didn't really perceive it," Izuku mumbled, rubbing the back of his neck. "I just moved." "Oh. It's the plain-looking boy." Uraraka Ochako popped up from behind Ida, beaming. "You got in. I was so worried about your legs. Are they okay?" "Yeah." Izuku nodded. "Recovery Girl is amazing. They're as good as new." "That kick was insane." Uraraka mimed a karate chop. "You went whoosh and then KBM." "I'm Ochako Uraraka, by the way." Izuku felt the heat rising in his cheeks. He wasn't used to this. Positive attention? Girls talking to him without looking at him like he was a bug? "If you're here to make friends, you can pack up and leave." The voice came from the floor. The class froze. Lying in the doorway, wrapped in a bright yellow sleeping bag like a disgruntled caterpillar, was a man with messy black hair and bloodshot eyes. He sucked on a pouch of jelly juice. "It took you 8 seconds to quiet down," the man said, standing up and shedding the sleeping bag. He looked like he hadn't slept in a week. "Time is a limited resource. You kids aren't rational enough." He walked to the podium, looking at the stunned students. "I'm your homeroom teacher, Shota Aizawa." "Teacher?" the class thought in unison. "He looks like a homeless person." "I know it's sudden," Aizawa said, pulling a stack of uniforms from his sleeping bag. But put these gym clothes on and head to the grounds. Gym clothes? Uraraka asked. What about the entrance ceremony? The orientation? Aizawa turned, his eyes cold and dark. If you're going to be heroes, you don't have time for such leisurely events. UA's selling point is freedom of style. And that applies to the teachers as well. He opened the door. Softball throwing. Standing long jump. 50-meter dash. Endurance running. Grip strength. Upper body training. Seated toe touch. Sit-ups. You did these in middle school, right? No quirk standard tests. He looked at Bakugo. Bakugo, you finished first in the entrance exam. In junior high, what was your best result for the softball throw? 67 meters. Bakugo grunted. Try it with your quirk, Aizawa said. The class followed him outside to the massive pea grounds. The sun was beating down, heating the dirt. Bakugo stepped into the circle. He stretched his arms. He glared at the ball. You can do whatever you want as long as you stay in the circle, Aizawa instructed. Bakugo wound up. Then, die, boom, an explosion propelled the ball into the stratosphere. Smoke curled from Bakugo's palm. He smirked. 705.2 meters. Aizawa read from his device. Whoa! Kaminari yelled. 700 meters? Seriously? This looks like fun! Ashido cheered. We can use our quirks as much as we want. Izuku stood near the back of the group. He felt a chill go down his spine. He recognized the look in Aizawa's eyes. It was the same look Mirko had when she was about to drop a 500-pound tire on him. Fun? Aizawa repeated softly. The air temperature seemed to drop. You have 3 years to become a hero. You think it's going to be games and fun? Aizawa smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. Right. Let's make this interesting. The student with the lowest total score across all 8 events will be judged as having no potential. He swept his hair back, his grin widening, and will be expelled immediately. Eh? The class shrieked. Expelled? On the first day? Uraraka protested. That's not fair. That's too unreasonable. Natural disasters, Aizawa said. Highway pileups. Rampaging villains. Calamity is always unreasonable. Heroes are the ones who overturn those situations. If you wanted to hang out at McDonald's after school, you're in the wrong place. He pointed a finger at them. Welcome to the Department of Heroics. Izuku tightened his fists. His heart was hammering against his ribs. Lowest score gets expelled. One for all is volatile, he thought. If I use it, I break. If I break, I can't complete the other tests. If I don't use it, I'm stuck with my base stats. He looked at his classmates. Engines. Zero gravity. Explosions. Acid. Creation. I have to survive without the quirk for the physical tests, he decided. Mirko made me strong. I have to trust the training. Test 1, 50-meter dash. Runners to your marks. Izuku crouched in the lane next to Bakugo. Bakugo looked at him. Don't cry when you lose, Deku. Izuku didn't look back. He was staring down the track. He wasn't in a standard sprinter's stance. He was lower, his hands spread flat on the ground, his back coiled like a spring. It was a beast stance. Start! Boom! Bakugo exploded forward, propelling himself with blasts behind his back. Izuku launched. He didn't have explosions. But he had explosive power. His legs churned, digging into the dirt. He wasn't running upright. He was driving forward, staying low to minimize wind resistance. Drive. 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 Bakugo crossed the line. 4.13 seconds. Izuku crossed right behind him. 5.51 seconds. It wasn't superhuman. Ida had clocked 3.04. But for a quirkless run? It was impressive. 5.51? Bakugo stopped, turning around. He looked confused. In middle school, Deku ran a 7.2. Since when are you fast? Izuku didn't answer. He was breathing rhythmically. In, hold out. Test 2, grip strength. Izuku squeezed the dynamometer. His forearm muscles corded. 56 kilograms. Whoa! 540 kilograms? Zero gasped, looking at the massive boy with multiple arms. Shoji. You're a gorilla! Izuku looked at his result. Average. Maybe slightly above average for his size. Without one for all, his grip was just human. Test 3, standing long jump. This was it. Izuku stood at the line. He swung his arms. He visualized the trash heaps at the beach. He visualized the gap between the refrigerator tower and the rusted crane. Jump. He exploded upward. He tucked his knees to his chest. He sailed through the air. He cleared the sandpit entirely. He landed in a roll, popping up to his feet. Wow! Ajiri croaked. He jumps like a frog. But no quirk. Aizawa watched from the sidelines, marking his clipboard. Physical conditioning is high. Above average for a civilian. But he hasn't used his quirk once. Is he underestimating the test? Or does he have a restrictive condition? Test 4, repeated side steps. Izuku moved in a blur. Left, right. His stamina was endless. While Mineta was wheezing after 20 seconds, Izuku kept the same pace for the full duration. Interim assessment. The test continued. Sit-ups. Seated toe touch. Distance run. Izuku was performing well. Consistently in the top half of the class based purely on athleticism. But he wasn't dominating, and against quirks that specialized in these areas, he was falling behind in the rankings. He did the math in his head. Ida is first in speed and endurance. Shoji dominates strength. Bakugo is top tier in everything. Uraraka aced the ball throw with infinity. Yaoyorozu is consistent. I'm hovering around 10th or 11th place. That's dangerous. One bad event could drop me to the bottom, and the next event was the ball throw. This was where the heavy hitters separated themselves from the pack. The ball throw. Midoriya! Aizawa called. Izuku stepped into the circle. The ball felt light in his hand. He looked at the field. If I throw this normally, I get maybe 40 or 50 meters. That's a failing grade compared to everyone else. I have to use one for all. He closed his eyes. I can't do 100%. I can't break my arm. If I break my arm, Aizawa might expel me just for being a liability. I need the pulse. Just like at the exam. But controlled. Not an explosion. A flow. He widened his stance. He placed his left foot forward, digging the heel of his boot into the dirt. Power comes from the ground up. He visualized the energy. The hum. One for all. 5%. The lightning crackled around his body. He felt the familiar searing pain of his muscles stretching to their limit, but he held it. He wound up. He twisted his hips. Channel it. Legs. Core. Shoulder. Arm fingertips. Smash! He threw the ball. It left his hand with a burst of wind, and then dropped to the ground 46 meters away. The lightning vanished. Izuku stared at his hand. What? I felt the power. Where did it go?